Here.
Dowdy,
Here.
Marvin,
Here.
Metzger,
Yes.
Purdy, Shook,
Here.
Barone,
Here.
Bell,
Here.
Coffee,
Here.
Corey, Daly,
Here.
Zuhon.
Here. We have a slightly different order. In the agenda tonight is the announcement line item, and I'm announcing we just have a slightly different agenda tonight. At this time, we will have an invocation followed by a moment of silent reflection. Heavenly Father, grant to us a full measure of compassion, tolerance, and understanding for all those present as we conduct the business of the county here tonight. Help us honor all of our servicemen and women in active duty and those that have served in the past. Keep safe all of those, and including first responders and law enforcement and fire protection. And help us to remember that they are protecting all of our freedoms. Again, we ask for your guidance and support. In your holy name, we pray. Amen. A moment of silence, please. I would ask that everyone rise and join with me. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next item, approval of the minutes. Have all been sent in either physically or electronically in your board packet, reviewed. Is there a motion to approve? I have a motion by Shook, second by John Doty. Roll call, please.
Here.
Dowdy,
Yes. Yes.
Marvin,
Yes.
Metzger,
Yes.
Purdy, Shook,
Yes.
Barone,
Yes.
Bell,
Yes.
Coffee,
Yes.
Corey, Daly,
Yes.
Zuhon.
Yes. Now we will proceed with committee reports. First up, Buildings and Grounds.
The Building and Grounds Committee met at 5:30 on February 25th. Mr. Walt updated us on the maintenance, the following activities. The 3 elevators have been inspected. Mr. Walters is waiting for the price of the computer box on the handicap elevator. The Smart Watt review of energy savings is still ongoing. There's no old business. Under new business, Mr. Lockhart presented the members with a resolution to authorize the chairman of the county board and/or regional planning committee executive director to execute an agreement with the supplier for gas and electric supply on behalf of the county as recommended by Good Energy. Mrs. Purdy moved to forward this resolution to the county board, seconded by Mr. Barone. This time I so moved.
You've heard the motion by Mr. Coffey. Is there a second? Shook? Mr. Shook? Discussion? Clarification needed? None? Roll call, please.
Doty,
Yes.
Dowdy,
Yes.
Marvin,
Yes.
Metzger,
Yes.
Purdy, Shook,
Yes.
Barone,
Yes.
Bell,
Yes.
Coffee,
Yes.
Corey, Daly,
Yes.
Yes.
Zuhon.
There was no miscellaneous business and meeting adjourned at 5:55 p.m. on a motion by Mr. Shook and a second by Mrs. Purdy.
Thank you, Mr. Coffey. County Office and Rules, Mr. Bell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The County Office and Rules Committee was called to order at 4:30 p.m. March 4th, 2019. Tax cycle update. In a memo, Mr. Milliman informed the members that the Board of Review will meet on March 8, 2019 to finalize 4 complaints. The Board of Review final notices will be going out on March 11, 2019. The taxes will be rolled over to the county clerk's office the week of March 18, 2019. At the last county board meeting, the board was questioned on Mr. Daly's Board of Review hearing. When Mr. Milliman started the schedule, we had the commercial complaint scheduled for January 17th. This would result in the hearings lasting until 7 p.m. The chairman of the Board of Review requested an additional date for hearings to avoid the late hour. Mr. Milliman scheduled an additional hearing date of January 16th, which Mr. Daly's complaint was on that date. The hearing notice was posted down by the handicap interest as well as the assessment office door 48 hours in advance of the hearing. Mr. Daly's name was on the notice. Mr. Lockhart reported the next test for the supervisor of assessments will be scheduled with the Department of Revenue in April. He was instructed to post this vacancy again to allow for additional applicants. The members heard 6 members of the public on the request to replace the invocation of county board meetings. Old business, the request for the replacement of the invocation was left on the table. There was no new business. The meeting adjourned at 5:10 p.m. on a motion by Dowdy and a second by Mr. Metzger.
Thank you, Mr. Bell. Emergency telephone 911, Mr. Shook.
No meeting, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Finance Committee, yes, no, Emergency Food and Shelter, Mr. Doty.
No meeting, Mr.
Okay,
Chairman.
thank you. Finance Committee, Mr. Metzger.
Finance Committee was called to order March 4th at 5:10 p.m. with the following members present: Brandon Bell, Travis Coffey, Mike Zuhon, Stan Metzger, Chairman presiding. Brian Marvin was unable to attend. Also attending were Denise Corey and Juan Barone. County Board members: Sheriff Jimmy Rankin, Tyler Hyleen, Chief Deputy Sheriffs, Ron Carroll, Security, George Edwards, Treasurer, Julie Coe, County Clerk, and Lane Carpus, Commodity Administrative Assistant. Treasurer's update: Mr. Edwards presented the members with a general fund revenue report for review. In old business, Mr. Carroll distributed the projected expense for an additional uniformed officer for the second floor of the courthouse. Ms. Kamada was instructed to place this item on the agenda for the next meeting. New business, Ms. Coe requested the authority to apply for a voter registration grant from the Illinois State Board of Education. Mr. Bell moved forward this request to the county board, and it carried unanimously. It was seconded by Coffey and carried unanimously. That'd be actually 4-0, not 5-0. At this time, I so move.
There's a motion, Mr. Metzger, to allow for the application of the registration grant. Mr. Coffey seconds that. Further discussion? If not, roll call, please.
Doty,
Yes.
Dowdy,
Yes.
Marvin,
Yes.
Metzger,
Yes.
Purdy. Yes. Shook,
Yes.
Barone,
Yes.
Bell,
Yes.
Coffey,
Yes.
Corey. Yes. Daly,
Yes.
Zuhon.
Yes.
In miscellaneous business, the members were presented with the resumes for the position of administrative assistant, and the meeting adjourned at 5:35 p.m.
Thank you, Mr. Metzger. February 25th, 2019, the Health and Safety Committee was called to order at 4:30 p.m. with the following members present: Rick Shook, Nancy Purdy, Stan Metzger, and myself, Chair presiding. John Doty was unable to be there. Also attending Jeremy Dowdy, County Board Member Diana Stinger, and Gloria Spear from the Coles County Public Health Department, Julie Dieters from the Care Center, Dan Ensign, Emergency Management, Kelly Lockhart, RPDC, and Elaine Carpus Kamada, Administrative Assistant. Care Center update: the monthly reports were distributed. They are attached. Ms. Dieters informed the members that a breakfast fundraiser will be held on March 9th at the Sweet Dreams in Mattoon. There was no EMA update under old business. Mr. Lockhart requested that the members charge $5 for each TV and or computer monitor with a limit of 10 of those at the upcoming waste collections event. Mr. Metzger moved to authorize this request, seconded by Mr. Shook. Motion carried unanimous 4-0. The members were presented with a request to opt in with the Manufacturing Clearinghouse and the Illinois EPA to host a waste collection event in 2020. Mr. Shook moved to grant this request. The motion was seconded by Ms. Purdy. It carried unanimous 4-0. Under new business, Mrs. Spear presented an amendment of the Coles County Food Sanitation Ordinance to comply with the new regulations of the Illinois Department of Public Health. Mr. Metzger moved forward this amendment to the county board for approval, seconded by Mr. Shook. Will you sponsor that motion?
I would sponsor the motion.
Thank you. A second, Ms. Purdy. Discussion? If not, roll call, please.
Doty,
Yes.
Dowdy,
Yes.
Marvin,
Yes.
Metzger.
Yes.
Purdy. Yes. Shook,
Yes.
Barone,
Yes.
Bell,
Yes.
Coffee,
Yes.
Corey. Yes. Daly,
Yes.
Zuhon.
Yes. The meeting adjourned at 4:55 p.m. by motion by Ms. Purdy and a second by Mr. Shook. Insurance Committee, Mr. Daly.
No meeting.
Okay, thank you. Liquor Commission, there was, yes, we did have a meeting. And let's see if it'll wind up for me, thank you. February 25th, 2019, Coles County Liquor Commission was called to order at 6 p.m. with the following members present: Denise Corey and Mike Zuhon, Chairman. John Doty was unable to be there. Also attending, Elaine Carpus-Camata, our administrative assistant. The members were presented with a renewal application for a liquor license for Mattoon Golf and Country Club for 2019. Mrs. Corey moved to approve the application as presented. The motion was seconded by Mr. Zuhon. It carried unanimous. The meeting adjourned at 6:10. A motion by Mr. Zuhon and a second by Mrs. Corey. Mental Health Board, Mr. Metzger.
No meeting yet to report.
Public Health Board. Please excuse why,
We do have planning and development, Mr. Chairman.
I'm sorry. Oh, I skipped right over that. Mr. Metzger, Planning and Development, please.
Thank you. Planning and Development Committee was called to order February 28, 2019 at 4:30 p.m. Members present: Brendan Bell, Paul Daly, John Doty, Jeremy Dowdy, Stan Metzger, Chairman presiding. Also attending were Jeff Craig, Mrs. Craig, Kelly Lockhart, RPDC, and Elaine Carpus-Camata, Administrative Assistant. In the IT update, Mr. Lockhart updated members on the IT department. In the GIS update, recordings for the county are down. Old business, Mr. Bell moved to remove from the table the proposed address change on Lincoln Highway Road. And that motion was seconded by Dowdy and carried unanimously. Members then discussed with residents different options on making the addresses more accessible for fire, ambulance, and emergency personnel to locate property within this subdivision. Mr. Lockhart was instructed to work with the Highway Department, adding additional signage for this purpose. And Mr. Lockhart's not here this evening to give further clarification on this, but he did follow up with the post office and got them what they can do, assigned as an alias address. So the folks on that road will be able to keep their addresses they have, but also sub themselves off of Lincoln Highway Road as their address. So they won't need to change any of their paperwork, their checks, licenses, or anything like that. But the post office will recognize that as an address without any additional expense to the residents. There was no new business. There was no miscellaneous business, and the meeting adjourned at 4:50 p.m. on a motion by Daly and a second by Bell.
All right, thank you. Public Health Board, there was a meeting. I do not have approved minutes to report. Road and Bridge, Mr. Daly.
We had a meeting on February 25th. The Road and Bridge Committee was called to order at 5 o'clock with the following members present: Rick Shook, Jeremy Doty, Travis Coffey, and myself presiding. And Chairman Mike Zuhon attended ex officio. Also attending was Nancy Purdy, County Board Member Rick Johnson, County Engineer Elaine Carpus-Camata, Administrative Assistant. There was no old business. The new business was the members were presented with a resolution to award a contract with Pugh and Owen Builders of Centralia, Illinois in the amount of $299,860.50 for a structure replacement along TR 137 in Nashville Township. Mr. Coffey moved to forward this resolution to the county board, and seconded by Mr. Doty, and passed unanimously. This is the same structure that Walker was unable to build, and so it's rebid, and so it actually came in a little bit cheaper for us. So at this time, I so move.
Okay, we have a motion to award a contract to Owen Builders of Centralia. There is a second. Mr. Dowdy, roll call, please.
Doty,
Yes.
Dowdy,
Yes.
Marvin,
Yes.
Metzger,
Yes.
Purdy, Shook,
Yes.
Barone, Bell,
Yes.
Coffee,
Yes.
Corey, Daly,
Yes.
Zuhon.
Yes.
Mr. Johnson distributed the county engineer's report to the members, and it's in your board book, the attachments. Miscellaneous business, there was none. Meeting adjourned at 5:30 on a motion by Mr. Coffey and a second by Mr. Shook.
Thank you, Mr. Daly. Senior Citizen Tax Levy Committee, Mr. Daly.
No.
Okay, thank you. Sheriff and Law Enforcement Committee, Mr. Coffey.
The Sheriff and Law Enforcement Committee was called to order at 5:38 on March 4th with the following members present: Denise Correa, Rick Shook, Juan Barone, and myself, Chairman, presiding. Also attending are Sheriff Jimmy Rankin, Chief Deputy Tyler Eileen, and Elaine Carpus-Camata, Administrative Assistant. Sheriff Rankin distributed the following monthly reports to the members to review. Those are in your board books. They are the Civil Process Report, Warrant Reports, Inmate Meal Reports, Detective Section Report, Overtime Pay Report, and Inmate Population Report. Under Old Business, Sheriff Rankin updated the members on the staffing situation. Under New Business, Sheriff Rankin informed the members that the Regional Planning Commission is updating the fee schedule. Ms. Camata was instructed to place this item on the agenda for next meeting. Under Miscellaneous Business, Sheriff Rankin invited the members to tour the jail after our next meeting. The meeting adjourned at 6 p.m. on a motion by Mr. Barone and a second by Mrs. Correa.
Thank you, Mr. Coffey. Supplies and Claims Committee report.
Mr. Chairman, the Supplies and Claims Committee met last Friday and reviewed the bills, and they're ready for approval, and I so move.
Thank you. There's a motion to approve payment of bills.
I'll second that.
We have a second by Mr. Bell. Roll call, please.
Doty,
Yes.
Dowdy,
Yes.
Marvin,
Yes.
Metzger,
Yes.
Purdy, Shook,
Yes.
Barone,
Yes.
Bell,
Yes.
Coffee,
Yes.
Corey, Daly,
Yes.
Zuhon.
Yes. We have nothing listed under old business, nothing under new business, no need for executive session. I do have an announcement of appointments. We have two. One appointment to the Sheriff's Merit Commission and one appointment to the Seven Hickory Morgan Fire Protection District. Next item on the agenda, remarks from the chair. Again, I will just touch base on the public comment, speaking policy. Please keep your comments time restraint. We have several people on the list that would like to speak. Please try and be clear and concise. Thank you. Now, here we go. Mr. Kraft, you are first on the list.
All right. On the 16th of February, I emailed a 6-page letter. Did everybody get that? Gave it to the chairman. I'm talking about the compensation setting resolution for Coles County elected officials. Everybody knows that if the board wanted to provide insurance, IMRF, et cetera, to the elected officials, they have the power to do that. It should have been placed on the resolution setting the compensation of those elected officials. It was not. This board told the public what they were paying the board members and the chairman. Turned around and added benefits without proper notification, without using the correct procedure. While the public thinks you're only making about $14,000 a year, some of you have added IMRF and medical insurance in addition to the compensation without informing the public. This compensation is in excess of the resolution setting the compensation. There's no dispute that health insurance is authorized under the county code. County code states that the board may arrange to provide health insurance. Key word is may. They should have actually, you can exercise your authority to do that at the proper time. The authority, the authorization to have insurance is contingent upon other factors like the Local Government Officers Compensation Act that requires the county to fix the compensation of its elected officials at least 180 days prior to the beginning of the terms of officers whose compensation is to be fixed. The county's code authorizes you to set the compensation and the method of compensation. Your resolution or ordinance set your method of compensation as receiving a monetary dollar amount, period. And if you fail to set your method of compensation properly, fail to include health insurance on your compensation setting resolution, guess what you can't receive? Health insurance. The board can change the method of fixing compensation prior to any election, except for the chairman. Chairman can only be done every 10 years under section 2-3008. All salaries and benefits are compensation. That's Harlan v. Sweet, the Supreme Court case in 1990. States in here, the power to increase one's salary should not be used to influence the performance of an office holder. A person ought not to be able to increase his or her own salary during their term of office. It is simply hard to envision how elected officials who are paid by way of salary can be given more money for the performance of their duties and have it termed as anything other than salary. That's what the Supreme Court Justice said. Article 20, Section 20-101 of the Code of Civil Procedure defines compensation that includes health insurance and retirement. The county's code defines employees, and you're considered employees for the purpose of receiving health insurance, provided you set the method of compensation properly and included it in your compensation setting resolution. The Constitution, Article 8, Section 1B. You're only authorized to incur debts for payment or make payments from funds as authorized by law or ordinance. This county has never authorized its county board members to receive health insurance benefits. Your county policy doesn't permit board members to receive health insurance. There's no classification of county board members. There's salaried exempt, but it defines that as full-time employees and defines full-time employees as working 30 or more hours a week. So there's several things you can do. The only truly proper way to fix the problem is immediately cancel all your health insurance and demand everybody that's received it in the last several years back up until the statute of limitations repay the county. Another remedy is to pass a resolution for the upcoming term. But that's not a remedy of the people that are receiving it right now. That would only fix it for the people that get elected in the future. So if you do that, you're still not complying with the law. You could ask the Attorney General to weigh in. I provided 6 specific questions you could ask the Attorney General. I would love to have the Attorney General weigh in and provide a binding opinion on whether the fact that health insurance has to be placed on the compensation setting resolution or not, because that would make my job a lot easier when I go to other counties. this is the fourth county I've given this speech to. 3 others have changed the way they're doing business. And if I had a letter from the AG, I wouldn't have to go talk, I could just email it to them. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Kraft. Dan Heafley?
Thank you. I'm Dan Heafley. I pastor Maranatha Baptist Church here in Mattoon. And I spoke last week to the committee, and I appreciate the opportunity to make a couple more comments. After the committee meeting, we had a rather spirited discussion in the hallway and enjoyed the conversation, listened to some of the concerns of the other side, and did some thinking about some of the things I heard. And I just wanted to say these few things. I promise just a couple minutes, all right? The first thing is that when you take away prayer from a county board meeting, what you've done in effect is you've taken away the individual rights of each one of these board members. And I think that's a tragedy. Separation of church and state, you guys are politicians, and I want to say thank you for what you do for our country. Thank you for what you do for our county. I appreciate the fact that you meet up here when nobody knows you're here, and you make decisions to benefit us, and I want to say thank you for that. I don't want you to lose your right to be who you are. And I think it's wrong for someone to come in and impose their will and to take away your right to pray if you want to pray in a public meeting. The separation of church and state, as I said, is a communist idea. It's right out of Karl Marx's manifesto. It's right. It was in the Constitution of the United Soviet Socialist Republic, which, as you know, is a failed attempt at socialism. It's not the United States of America Constitution. It's not in there anywhere. And the idea that we would separate the God from our government is obnoxiously insane. Now that I've said how I feel, let me say one other thing. Someone made the comment to me that the name of Jesus Christ has been used to fight a lot of wars. And I would like to say to you that bad people use anything they can use. They'll use religion, they'll use government, they'll use anything. There's corrupt cops, there's corrupt politicians, and there's corrupt preachers. There's corrupt cults, there's all kinds of things. There's corrupt university professors. Pause for a moment of silence. There's problems everywhere you look with bad people, is there not?
Yep.
If I was in church, I would say, nod your head and help me out just a little bit. It's the truth. You know it's the truth. So, as I look across the country, and I've traveled this country, I've been in churches all across America. We've been here in Mattoon for 7 years. I've pastored other churches, and I've been all across this country. And in every nook and cranny of this country, you're going to find, every little village, every hamlet, you're going to find a church, and you're going to find a group of people that are doing good things. You're going to find them helping the poor. You're going to find them all in the name of Jesus. You're going to find them feeding the elderly, taking meals to them. You're going to find them helping the sick. You're going to find them, doing everything they can to bless and follow the teachings of Jesus Christ. You'll find that everywhere. There's a lot of good done. When we pray in this public meeting or in any public meeting, our prayers are not to condemn anyone. Our prayers are actually to invoke blessing from the Almighty on everyone. And the Bible that I read says God causes His sun to shine on the just and the unjust. He blesses everyone on this planet. He's given us all good things to enjoy. And that is the God to whom we pray. Oftentimes, when someone finds a problem, gets a problem, they call the preacher. They want me to pray. Families breaking up. Finances are bad. Something's wrong. Somebody's sick. I'm at the bedside of people that are dying constantly. They're always asking. People who don't believe in God are always asking for me to pray for them. You know why? Because they're hoping that somebody somewhere is listening, and they're kind of sometimes gambling that maybe I might have a private line to the upstairs. Now listen, why would anyone say, we don't want you to try to bless us? Why? That doesn't make sense to me. Thank you for listening. I just want you to think about it.
Thank you. Mr. Perry.
Last meeting, I came and asked a couple of questions. I want to kind of reiterate what I said. I'm going to point it to Brandon because it's going to be his the Rules Committee will possibly have the answer. Brandon, I asked you about calculations and computations last meeting from Mr. Becker, so I could see actually what in the world he come up with. And I'm hoping that you have those for me. Do you have them?
I do not.
May I ask, is that something that you can't provide?
I know you have asked them in the office for those, correct?
I've been 2 years asking for the same thing, and I'm going to turn this into something so it makes sense to you.
Okay.
I went to my border review finalized last Friday. I went in, sat down with board review on one of my parcels, properties. And what was strange about it, the number that he had actually put on my property was just twice as much, a little more than twice as much as should be. Well, maybe you don't think that's anything to worry about, but I'm quite concerned. And let me explain something. I'll stop for a moment to kind of make it more common for everybody to understand. When you walk into the board of review, the burden of proof is on the person that's there with the complaint to show the proof and the evidence that's right. So I'm the one that has to show the burden of proof. I have to go out and get an appraisal, or I have to have 3 comps that are close to what the property is. Well, commercial property, I got the appraisal, I took it in. So what's funny about all of this, Brandon, and see if this makes sense to you, and the rest of the board members too. If I'm willing and have to pay for an appraisal, and my appraisal comes in way lower than what Bob Becker's work says that it is, isn't it kind of redundant that you're giving the burden of proof to me to prove what I've got, but you're not allowing me to see what he did? So I don't know if what he's done is anywhere near close to what it ought to be. So in one hand, I'm doing what you asked me to do, but in the other hand, you keep not giving me what I want. And after 2 years, don't you think it's time that somebody fesses up, especially when I pay for an appraisal, to find out that he's twice as much as what it should be? To me, it doesn't look like we're doing fair things from the standpoint of taxpayer to the, taxpayer to the county board of review. And, all I'm trying to say is I don't have any, I've got the point of reference, I've got the evidence. But you have no point of reference, but you're trying to instill all of the things that Mr. Becker did 2 years ago, saying that it's right and correct. It's not. So what do we do in order to get you to do something? That's what I'm saying. Is it going to take court action to finally get what I've been asking for? Is it something that you're hiding? It has nothing to do with what we're talking about in the case. So what's the big hang-up?
I will talk to the office and see what we can come up with, but I know some of those.
You think that I'm asking for something that's not fair?
Absolutely not.
Okay, and I don't want to come up here and try to ask for something that's not right. All I'm saying is we play on a level playing field. You ask me to do what I'm supposed to do. I provide what you asked me to do. And all I'm saying is I want you to be able to show me where those numbers came from. Okay?
Fair question.
The other thing is I'm kind of I don't know what's going to happen now because Andrew's not going to be around. And I'd like to know what the plans are from the standpoint of where we go from here, because now there's nobody in the office that basically knows much about the operation as a supervisor of assessment. What are we gonna do?
Andrew just handed us his 2-week notice, was that Friday? So we are trying to work on that. So we're still waiting on the next test to see if we can get anyone that passes it. I know we've had some other people that have called in that might be interested in the job. So
It looks like to me the wheels are coming off the wagon. I mean, and I don't mean to be disrespectful, but there's nobody watching the house now.
I understand.
And I don't understand, as we come up here and talk to you about things, why that makes any sense. Because the damage is done, and whomever we find, or whoever it is gonna be walking into basically what I'm calling a nightmare, because things aren't right in that office.
I agree 100%.
And the worst part of this is, if these appraisals are what they are, and I can prove what I say, there's gonna be some rough time ahead for all of us. So all I want to do is see something done, and I don't know what you're gonna do. And is there a plan? Is there gonna be a formulation of a plan?
Oh, yes, sir. And I think the wheels have been off that office for 16 years that this hasn't gotten done. So, and I don't think, and I would think you would agree that this reassessment wasn't going to be easy, wasn't going to be clean.
No, I don't think it was easy.
Okay, so we've been dealt a new hand by not having a supervisor of assessments, and that's something we're going to have to, look forward and try to get it figured out as best we can.
I'm all
That's all
right
we
with
can do.
that. We're all gonna have problems. It's not just you or me or anybody else, it's the whole county. We've gotta get it under control.
I think it's been
because this
16
thing,
years.
It's out of control.
Absolutely.
The other thing is, one or two, I'm gonna take this to you, Mr. Zillon. I think a couple of things need to be looked at. And I'm saying for the people that work for the county board, the people that are in flux here, I'd like some kind of a format to where we put your taxes up on display so the people know that, hey, you're leading and you're not in the middle of the pack, not doing what you're supposed to be doing. I'd rather have everybody knowing that their taxes are good and current. Nobody's getting any special favors. Nobody's not paying their fair share. And I think it's just a part of leadership to where everybody on the board, as well as anybody else that's connected with this county, would want to come forward, step forward and be leaders here. Put your numbers on the table so people can see them. It's only fair, because we're in it together. That's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Perry. Mr. Donasso.
This is what, 27th meeting we've been at? 27 meetings, over 2 years. You came after 16 years supposedly that you meaning the county, didn't do a assessment of commercial property. You reassessed my property. You said my property was worth X. I went out and got an appraisal. I went to the board of review. I followed the rules. I did everything I was supposed to do. And you mean to tell me after 27 months, and I've emailed for this, Rob has emailed for this, Rex has emailed for this, I can produce the emails, I can produce the videos, the questions. You can't tell me how you're coming up with the numbers when you hired the guy to come up with the numbers. I think, as a taxpayer, that's outrageous that you expect me, because a tax is basically confiscation of my personal property. I work hard just like everyone in this room. When you tell me that I need to pay more, I don't want to pay less or any more than my fair share. But when you tell me you come up with a number and you can't justify that number, and all we get after this, Brandon, I'm sorry, we've asked you for this for 2 years. And for you to say, well, we're still working on it, when? When the assessment's over with? When Bob's gone and we don't get answers? This is BS. You come up with a number for me, I want to know how you got it, because you put the burden of proof on me to go in there and hire someone expensive money for a commercial appraiser. They're about $1,000 to $1,500, and that's what I had to do.
I understand,
You had to do it.
I understand, yes, I did.
So I don't think we are asking for anything that is unreasonable. And for this board to ignore us only tells me that you're not really concerned about your constituents. Because we shouldn't have to ask you and ask you and ask you. So next meeting, I'm challenging this board. I want the answer to the question, how did you come up with the numbers? Don't tell me I gotta wait 30 more days. I want to know how you came up with the numbers for my property, for Rob's property, and for everyone else's property that's not asking too much. And yes, I'm aggravated. 27 months out of 2 years, over 2 years coming here and asking. That's not unreasonable.
Is it going back on the values and formulas?
I want to know
We're not allowed-
the formulas.
That are in the system that we can't produce?
Why can't you produce them?
It's what they put into the,
No, what it
existing
is,
form, in
he
the,
had to have-
program?
Yes.
he had to have formulations of everything that he reassessed. That means he had all of the buildings and numbers that he had to use out of the archives of what came in, and those numbers are part of where he comes up with his numbers to feed into the computer. I want to see everything that he used, the whole enchilada, so we can grab it and look at it. Because obviously there's something wrong.
And if he was using the proper numbers and everything's square like you tell us it was, everything should match up. That's called accountability and being transparent.
But we understand that, I also read that when we're doing this reassessment, the values, a third of them are going to be low, a third of them plausible, meaning close, and a third of them high. So they're not, it's not an exact, do you agree with me? Not,
Well, here's
they're
what
not,
I'll
he's not gonna
formulate.
get it perfect.
Well, hold on, here's
Is
the
that
thing.
correct?
I don't know if it's correct or not, because
Okay,
I'm not an
so-
assessor, but what
but
I want
then
to
you're
say
going
is,
to the
I
board
have
of
the right as a
review.
taxpayer to know how you came up with the number.
Okay.
That's all I'm asking.
All right.
I'm not going to speculate on whether a third are correct, incorrect. I can only speak for my own property.
You know what I
That's all
think
I'm
You
we
doing.
agreed, you didn't go, you left the board of review and you were happy with.
I've never been happy since the board review. The reason that I agreed with the board review was because the P-tab is so backed up for 6 years that I didn't want to wait 6 years and be penalized, okay? I
But if
think
you were
the
correct though,
taxes,
would you get that money back? Would you be refunded that money?
What's the
If your
question?
number was correct and you should have paid less in taxes, would you have gotten that money back?
I don't understand.
If you would have overpaid?
6 years later.
Well, I mean, how much money, I mean, that could be a considerable amount of money that
First of all,
I would wait for.
hold on. Our tax money goes to pay for supervisor assessment that's supposed to reassess the properties. It's not me as a taxpayer's responsibility to go out and make sure that the supervisor assessment's doing their job. I have willfully and dutifully, as a citizen, paid my taxes every time the back. To be honest with you, sometimes that bill would come and I would just give it to someone else to write the check because I'm too busy. And I only started getting involved in this when I understood that there were some things that might not be right about the reassessment.
Because
So-
your tax bill, what did it get raised, how much did it get raised? I mean, from your previous tax bill?
Initially, it went up exponentially.
Well, how much?
It doubled
how
in
much
half.
did you? How much did
It
you?
doubled in half,
How
the
much did
assessed
you agree
value.
upon at board review?
Well, I can't remember every number. I can show, you can look it up, I can bring it if you want me to. I have no
$1,300
problem.
a year?
I don't remember how
I
much.
think it was about 1,300, so.
Well, then you know more than I do.
Yeah.
Okay? But it doesn't matter how much. What I want to know is how you came up with the number. That's all I'm asking.
Okay.
It's a fair, square thing.
Absolutely.
So I had to justify what I felt the value of my building was. So I hired an appraiser, I paid money. So paying your fair share, like you said, heard you say that many times, we all should be paying our fair share. I think we can agree on that, correct? But
Absolutely.
what I want to know is why the rules are different. Why some people have to get an appraisal and go in and fight tooth and nail to prove that their properties aren't worth the number or figure that Bob Becker came up with, and other people can walk in there with no comps, no appraisals, and walk away with a drastically reduced appraised value. Do you think that's fair?
No, I don't.
Well, I have Mr. Daly's numbers here. So I'm going to give Mr. Daly a fair shot. If I'm wrong on this, or if there's information I don't know, did he get an appraisal? Did he bring in comps? And why was his numbers lowered the way they were? And the reason that I'm bringing this up is because you are, by appointing Dan Lawrence, which is part of the board, we asked you not to do it. It gives the aura that there's a connection to the board. He hasn't passed the test yet, correct? And we don't have an acting supervisor assessment, so you have to sign off on the assessments. Did you sign off on Mr. Daly's assessment?
No, I did not.
Well, I have documents here that says this is assessed values after final board review action. Didn't you just say in the minutes that the final 4 were signed off on March 11th or 13th or whatever it was?
I would have to go back and review.
And the board of
Does Chairman
review,
Zuhon have to, or is it just
Well,
Matt
I-
Frederick that's the chairman of the board of review
I
has
am-
to sign off on those?
well, I understand the board of review has to sign off on it, but I also understand that since there's no acting supervisor assessment, am I correct in my assumption that you have to sign off as chairman on that? Am I correct on that?
I don't think,
I'm
you
not
might be wrong.
absolutely familiar with that part of
So,
it.
who signed off on this thing?
I thought Matt Frederick, the chairman of the board of review.
So the supervisor assessment doesn't have, if we don't have an acting supervisor assessment, no one else except the board of review has to sign off on that.
No.
That's not a trick question, I don't know the answer.
I don't either.
I was under the understanding that you had to as the chairman, and I'm asking respectfully.
I would have to investigate that to find out whether my duties in the absence of a supervisor of assessment are signing off on board of review activities or merely the taxation and assessment levels.
I believe Matt Frederick only has to sign off on that.
Well, I think on maybe the appeal, but I was under the understanding that it goes through a process and then the clerk eventually signs off on everything for the EAB. But I think in the absence, there may be something there. I'm not 100% on that, but the reason I'm bringing that up is if that's the case, that gives the appearance of impropriety. Because if somebody did not bring an appraisal, and they got a reduction like Mr. Daly got, and you guys revamped the rules, significant change for 2018 for the Coles County Board of Review, it says right here, for complaints based on market value, a recent appraisal of the property, entire appraisal must be submitted for review. Was there one submitted? Mr. Daly, was there one submitted? So you're not even going to let us know if you submitted one. So what do I have to do to get answers from this board? Do I consistently have to go and just ask? I submitted an appraisal. I'll be happy to show you what I paid and what mine were. You're not happy to do that with the public, your constituents here. You won't do that. So what I'm going to suggest is, and now I'm going to leave it up to you to prove me wrong, I think there was favoritism with Mr. Daly's board of review. And if I'm wrong, I'll gladly apologize. But if that man did not have to get an appraisal and it was a commercial piece of property, like I had to do, and he's not playing by the same rules, then I think it's wrong. Because you've all said all along we should all be playing by the same rules, and I don't think the rules are fair or right that elected officials should play by different rules than the people that they're elected by. And I'm not trying to pick on Mr. Daly, but Mr. Daly won't answer any questions. That's why we tried to attend his board of review meeting that was mysteriously changed to the next day. I don't buy, for the record, I don't buy that it was just because it was going to be a long day for the board of review. I think Mr. Daly knew we were coming to the meeting. He didn't want to be there when we were there, and it was conveniently changed. Again, special treatment.
I don't think that's true.
Well, I believe it. You've given me reason to Brandon, of all people, you won't even provide us with the figures on how you came up with the numbers, and you want me to believe that. After everything we've been through in 2 years here, I don't believe it. Mr. Daly refuses to answer questions on anything to do with his assessment, whether he has an appraisal or not. We're not asking for anything that's secret.
I understand.
Mr. Daly, why won't you answer any questions from the public? Oh, not from me. Oh, okay. Rob, would you direct that question to Mr. Daly?
So you have the floor. Please continue, Mr. Perry.
But he said he won't answer for me.
That's right.
So if someone else answers the question, you would answer that, Mr. Daly? One of your constituents from your district asked you that question, you would answer? And I'm waiting for an answer.
Okay.
Okay, so arrogance, I want everyone to know this. Fox News, arrogance from elected officials, don't have to answer questions, don't have to be transparent, special treatment for them and not for us. Thank you, Mr. Daly. We will be making a public issue out of this.
Mr. Dawes. Audrey Edwards, please.
Is this work?
You can leave it there.
Oh, yeah, you can just leave it there. You're good, just.
You can just leave it on the podium.
It'll work.
It'll work?
There you go.
Okay, I know my voice doesn't very well. Well, I wanted to say I was thinking of running for county board, but I don't think I will after all. It's more work than I thought. Gosh. Okay, well, I'm kind of terrified of public speaking, and I really wondered why I would be getting up here and saying anything. Well, I woke up today asking myself, I care about the issue of having invocations at government meetings. And I'm old, that's why. I remember World War II. And I remember that during World War II, some people in some parts of the world thought that non-Christians were not exactly human and did not need to be treated with respect. And in fact, they could be treated really very badly. Now, you might think that couldn't happen here. My husband has relatives in Rhode Island, and when we were in Providence, we went to visit the very first synagogue in the United States, Truro Synagogue. And there's a story that they built a tunnel under the synagogue, an escape tunnel, in case somebody came for them. Wow. Turns out it's alleged. It's not true. But they did write a letter to George Washington, and they had his reply framed because part of the synagogue is a little museum. And the head of the synagogue wrote to George Washington and said, "Will we be safe in your new country?" They had to ask. And he wrote back and he said, "We are better people than that. Yes, you are safe here. We will treat you with respect. And I personally will do everything I can to make that true." And he did come and visit them. And he did everything in his power to make sure that people of all faiths and people of no faith, including some of our founding fathers, were treated with respect. And considering the dangers that were faced in World War II, I'm always afraid of religion and politics getting too close together because there are issues of safety. So thank you for listening. I really appreciate the fact that the two sides in this controversy, who could have been butting heads, are actually listening to each other. I think that's a lot of progress, and I appreciate the spirit of compromise, and I hope it continues. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. My father, excuse me, ma'am. My father was in World War II. He was over there fighting Hitler. And it was a tough situation, and thank you.
Mr. Dukeman.
Mr. Chairman, I just wanted to ask concerning the topic that Mr. Kraft brought up. What has been the discussion about the health insurance? This is the 5th month that we've come here talking about it. And I just want to see how this is going to be handled.
Insurance as in supplied to the county board members?
Yes, sir.
I just want to make sure that we have dug into the records as to when it was first initiated, where there was a line item expense. It went back to 1977. It is still extra reading is still required to move forward through all of that to see if in any time there was mention of county board. That's where we're at with that right now.
Mr. Danley, will you be seeking any advice from the Attorney General on this topic?
I'd consider it. I certainly, my opinion about my job is that I should give my full resources to this county first. So before I move on to an opinion from the Attorney General and take resources away from them, I would like to exhaust my research. So Mr. Zuhon correctly stated, we're still looking into things. I certainly read with intent Mr. Kraft's letter, considering the issues raised, and like I said, we did discover the 1977 resolution, or the line item. So listen, we get a lot of crime in Coles County, unfortunately, and it's keeping me busy, but it is getting our attention. I can't promise you an X date when that's accomplished, but I can certainly try to confer with Mr. Zuhon or any other county board member that asks me before our next board meeting. Fair enough?
Thank you. I just like for it to, come to a head, one way or the other.
Okay. And Mr. Dukeman, if we did seek advice from the Attorney General, I can't promise you how fast they would get back to me. So if they're going to write an advisory opinion, that's on their timetable. So
Yes, I understand.
About 4
years. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dugan. Ms. Annalisa Switzer, please.
Notes here. So, can everybody get back there hear me when I'm talking this way? I know I don't talk very loud. So I'm going to try to talk louder. So tonight, I wanted to speak to thank you. I know that it's easier to stand here and criticize than it is to sit there and be criticized. So I want to thank you that even though the voices of the majority are loud, you did pay attention to the concerns of the minority of the community. And I really appreciate that. And you also changed your procedures to try to accommodate us. So I actually have a question here. You did the moment of silent reflection this time. Is that something that's going to continue for?
It is my intent to continue with the agenda as it was presented tonight for the foreseeable future.
Okay, I just wondered if it was a one-time thing or.
No, it's not.
Thank you. So I think that solution isn't perfect, but I think it's good enough for now, for me. And I really appreciate that. So I wanted to thank you all for that. I do wish that Mr. Metzger had thought to apologize for interrupting me with an outburst when I had the floor at the committee meeting a month and a half ago.
You asked me a question. You asked how I would feel.
That was a rhetorical question. I was speaking.
You asked a question.
Yeah. Thanks for that non-apology also. And I also wish Mr. Shook had chosen to apologize to all of us after using threatening language to us at last month's general meeting. Instead, he chose to come to a committee meeting that he's not a part of, just so he could repeat those words to us. I think that type of behavior is completely inappropriate for a council member, and I wish that I didn't have to be the one to chastise him. But overall, I am grateful
I
to you
said,
as a council.
if you folks didn't like to,
Mr. Shook, she has the floor, please.
I'm grateful to you as a council for taking your time to listen to our concerns and not brushing us off as inconsequential. So I'm really glad when this is all said and done. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's see, Samuel Stott.
I'm going to reference the last meeting. At the last rules of the committee meeting, a comment was made by an individual that opposes the prayer stating, "I do not feel very welcome." Now, I would ask, did anyone bar the door so that this individual could not come into the meeting? No. In fact, my sister and I and everyone else in the pews scooted over so that these individuals could have a seat. but yet this one line of propaganda made the headline in an article about the meeting in the Journal-Gazette Times-Courier. I would like to say that you guys are welcome to these meetings, and I personally would never even make a notion that you could step out during any part of these meetings. However, I would ask that you leave your feelings at the door. We are here to discuss matters that concern our community, and feelings will only cloud everyone's judgment. What I do believe we are seeing here is a feeling-based attempt to silence Christian individuals from not just praying, but from also speaking out about their faith and their faith-based opinions and decisions concerning this community. That would be for you board members that are Christian, and so on. We do not need feelings clouding everyone's judgments. What I believe Now, I would like to close here with a famous quote from Dave Ramsey. Adults devise a plan and follow it. Children do what feels good. And I hope that our county board would never make a decision based on what feels good. Thank you.
Thank you. Les Combs. To the board members, I gave you some information. Les is going to review that, and then if you would want to.
I came to this board about 8 months ago, gave you a solution to a problem, and 8 months later, the board had told me 8 months ago that if they had something in writing, they'd do something. 8 months later, they didn't have anything in writing. I'm sorry, I'm an impatient person. So I got it for you. Took me 15-minute telephone conversation in 2 weeks. Didn't take me 8 months. Now basically, I understand that the board's action on this was based on what you were told. You were told that the dumpster program was illegal. It was not. It was not in compliance, but it wasn't illegal. Compliance and illegality is two different things. Basically, it could have been tweaked and still implemented. Okay? Never had to be closed. Number two, you were told you had to have a permit. Wrong. Don't have to have a permit unless it's hazardous waste or recycling. Number three, you were told that you had to have a fence around the dumpster. That is, if it is a permanent fixture, like at a restaurant, apartment complex, fast food, it stays there all the time, it has to have a fence. You were told it had to be picked up within so many hours. Wrong, doesn't have to be picked up in so many hours. So basically, the information you were given was incorrect. Basically, if you look at here, I told you 8 months ago that it was legal if you asked the EPA if a dumpster could be financed by the county board and supplied to the townships for the purpose of collection and removal of open dumping. As you'll see on page 3 and 4, the answer to that is yes. Okay? You were told no. I was told no. I kind of got a little heated about it. I said, give me the agent's phone number and the agent's name, and I'll call him. I said, you had to have elaborated. Nope, didn't elaborate. Well, we did because we were told that we weren't going to be given an answer unless we elaborated. I said, well, give me the phone number. I'll call and talk to the agent. I said, they're not going to tell me and Dale Ryder it's legal and turn around and tell you it's illegal. I said, you had to have said something. I said, I'll find out. So I called Mr. Hubbard, Thomas, very nice gentleman, very informative. I said, Mr. Hubbard, can the county board finance dumpsters given to the townships for the purpose of, as I've stated? He said, yes. He didn't ask me for anything further. He said, yes. I said, well, my understanding was you were told that it was illegal. He said, well, I said, yes, it's legal, but I was asked if the dumpster wasn't full, if it was moved to a second location to finish filling it, would that be legal? And I told them no. That's why it became illegal, because it can't be taken from one site to another site, unless it has to go from that site directly to the landfill. Okay? So this gentleman, Mr. Thomas Hubbard, after I talked to him for a little while, I got comfortable with him. Man seemed very informative, very open. So I followed up with the question. I said, the cities have open collection days. Can a township have one? And he said, yes. Yes, they can. He said, per site, the normal legal is one per year. Per site. He said, now if they have multiple sites, they can have multiple collections in a year. I said, really? He said, yes. So if you've got, like in a city, if you want to have one at the park, if you want to have one at the fairground, if you want to have one somewhere else, you can have multiple as long as you have them on different sites. Okay? If you look at the back of the page on my answer to my second question, which was about giving dumpsters for the collection, on the very last paragraph, it says that the agency shall not approve or shall not approve a one-day household waste collection event at the same site or facility more than once a year. Okay? But it says, therefore, the township could conduct up to 4 day household waste collections per year with agency approval. Now, that's not a permit. That's an approval. Okay? That means that you can have 4 sites. Now, as a businessman, here's the advantage of this, both to the county and to the people. You were issuing 1 dumpster per month. Okay? According to this, which I'm confident I can get the approval from the EPA, you could have 2 dumpsters. Every 3 months, you're saving 1 dumpster. You're still servicing the community. You're still saving money that you have $226,000 in the fund in up until February of 2020. I have given you a solution. I have given you the law. And I am willing to communicate with the EPA if you want to follow through with it. The options you have is that you could disregard it, drag it out until February of 2020, which most people will then feel that that was basically to kill the program and grab the funds from it. Your second option is to look at the townships that wanted to maintain the dumpster program and divide that money amongst those to continue the program on their own. Your third option is to reinstate the program under these regulations and laws and supply that to the community of. I mean, I'm an impatient person, so unfortunately I got tired of waiting because nothing was getting done. And I'm not blaming the board, okay? I'm just saying that action should have been taken quicker. What I told you is here in writing that you said you wanted. I've given it to you. And Mr. Hubbard's phone number is on this paper. Feel free to call him. The gentleman is very knowledgeable and very informative. The reason it took me 2 weeks was because his superior had to sign off on this documentation. So his signature is also on there to sign it. Is there any, do any of you board members have any questions for me? Yes, sir.
How does this final sentence go along with what you're saying? Therefore, the township could conduct up to 4 one-day household waste collections per year.
With agency approval.
Note that the agency usually limits these one-day collections to hazardous and non-standard waste, e.g. used oil, excluding
Correct.
food waste and landscaping waste.
Correct.
It says usually, but he's also stated ahead of that, and I did call it, that it can be used for household with their approval. Okay? Now, you can have the one a year, according to this, one a year above, without any approval. Okay? And that one you can have at a different site location. You can have 12 if you've got 12 different sites. But when I called and asked him that, he said that's normally the request. When an approval is asked for, it's usually asked for those items. And he's saying, but in his statement prior to that, he's saying if you request it for the household, it also qualifies. It's just usually the other is asked for.
Oh, I understand. I see.
Yeah, that's how he explained it to me. Is normally nobody calls up and asks for a 4-time-a-year approval for household goods and stuff. It's usually for oil or hazardous waste or something like that, which also usually has to be permitted. But on this, that's why he stipulated beforehand that household goods could be used. But it is on the same site, 4 times a year on the same site, you do have to secure approval from the EPA to do that.
I apologize. I'm reading this 2 or 3 times now, and I guess I'm still not sure I'm seeing it the same way you are, but that doesn't mean...
That's why I called and asked him, and you can do the same. Okay? Mr. Thomas explained it to me in that manner is that it's either or. In other words, the normal is for the one that you were concerned about. The other is that it qualifies too, but it can be asked for. But normally, what he's just saying is that normally it's the other that's being asked for approval, not the household goods. Is there any other questions?
I've got a question for you.
Yes, sir.
Would that just be from 2019 to 2020 and then it's going to expire?
The contract expires, and then that is totally 100% into the board's hands as far as that, as the funding and everything, because the contract with the landfill expires, if I'm not correct, in February 2020. The dumpsters, I think, are locked in at $250 a dumpster.
Kelly's not here. I don't
In that neighborhood.
It's
Basically, when the contract goes up, those dumpsters will go up from what I have to pay as a contractor discount of around $545. Well, that's for a 30-yard. A 20-yard is going to be $485, somewhere in that neighborhood is what it's going to go up to. And from my understanding, when the contract ends, then the board, along with the planning commission, figures out what they're going to do from that point, or am I wrong?
Well, in tonight's minutes given from planning development, I have to look up the exact wording. We did opt into a 2020 plan.
countywide cleanup.
I mean, I know that the regional planning commission was working on a new plan to take over after the 2020 January.
There are programs that are going to be, not programs, it's individual events that are going to be organized, and they run $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 to host that kind of an event.
Right.
There will be...
Because that's recycling events mostly.
Yes, part of that's recycling, hazardous waste, but the money, the $226,000 or whatever the particular figure is, will still be earmarked for waste collection.
Yes.
So it's not being just, it's not going back into the general fund. It is still tagged.
But but whatever money doesn't get used in what was canceled,
right,
will be utilized in the new planning commission's design. Okay? So, and I'm sorry, but the way, and I'm not blaming the board, okay? But the way it was handled and the way it's been drug out for 8 months, it took me 2 weeks to get, leads me to think that that's been drug out intentionally. That's the impression that I have got and others around me, is that it's been intentionally dragged out so that the funds aren't depleted, and so that they're there at the end of 2020, February, to roll over into the new program, okay, and be used on it. That is the
feedback I'm getting, it's also the feeling I'm getting. Because like I said, it didn't take me 8 months. So, is there any other questions the board would like to ask? Okay? I have supplied what you have asked for. I was told that you would act on what it, if I was able to supply what I told you I could supply. So, hopefully, I will see something happen.
Okay. Thank you for your time and your effort.
Stan, I didn't hear correctly. Did you say you did or didn't? You said in 2020 they were going to renew or not renew?
It's from Health and Safety, and it was, the members were presented with a request to opt in with the Manufacturing Clearinghouse and the Illinois EPA to host a waste collection event in 2020. And this is going to be TVs, electronic.
That was my question. I didn't know if you said did or didn't. That's all.
We did.
Yeah, you answered my question. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Charles Stodden, please.
Well, I kind of enjoyed that dumpster coming. It got, the word became the dumpster day. And it was really nice when it would catch on fire at times. That was always exciting. I don't want to spend a lot of time. And I helped my neighbor. You know, you can read in the Bible, the Word of God, gleaning has been for thousands of years an opportunity for poor people to get a leg up in life. How many know that? How many has ever read the Bible? It's in the Bible. How many know it? Anybody know it?
I wasn't understand. Go ahead. Yes. Go ahead.
Okay, it's in the Word of God. A beautiful story in the book of Ruth, how Ruth was gleaning and her and Joab fell in love. And, oh yes, that's good reading. Miss Switzer, is she here?
She stepped down for a
I
minute.
thought she said this year was good enough for now. The idea of being silent, that was good enough for now. Did anybody hear that?
I heard it.
I do.
Yes. Okay. Well, we got problems in the country tonight. Where's my helper at? Bring them up here. Now this will take a minute. I know everybody's tired and there's a couple more to speak. You don't have to turn on the radio too much or the television. We hear people talking about socialism. There is a war on tonight. We're in a war. The old system is under attack. And so I want everybody to have a copy of this. If you can, make sure the board gets a copy. I've looked up some of our history. I'll make some quick remarks. Customs, actually, this is kind of a custom. I don't know if it's set down in law. I know it could be law up in Congress, up in Washington. But customs are actually unwritten law. Don't look at the paper until I get to it. So we'll start at page number 1. I want us to, has everybody got a copy now? Only one copy left?
You need to give them some copies.
I want the county board to have one because they're going to make the decisions. Oh yeah, we got plenty of copies. I thought I made 25. Now, this was our forefathers. They went through a lot of blood, sweat, and tears over hundreds of years. And we can actually go back thousands of years. The ladies can have one up there too. I think we got plenty. And if you go to page 1 here, I want to move right along. I got this from John Eismo, a constitutional lawyer. I know him personally. And I made some marks there. On the side, you see the Declaration of Independence, where Jefferson wrote that. And I'm just going to go quickly through it. But it's in the Declaration. There was actually a plan to put us under French law. French law is not the greatest kind of law you want to be under. And that was the plan of the British Crown as they were moving against the forefathers. You can see off to the left, I made some notations there where it speaks, and up here at the top where Mr. Eismo wrote his book. When you see common law, you pretty well know that this is out of the Holy Scriptures. And that's where you get the law of gleaning. It was a law. Custom is law. It's unwritten law, but it is law. Now, if you don't believe that, talk to a farmer that sells grain. He does it over the phone. It's usually followed up by paperwork that even if it isn't, he still has to deliver the grain. He's under law to deliver the grain. And I don't know of other things, but I'm sure there's others. Now you can read that there, the second paragraph up on top, and then there's a little more down below. The issue decided by this war was more than which European nation would control the resources of the North American interior. And actually they were coming down out of Canada, and you get these towns here of Bourbonnais up north here, Joliet, those towns that was under French influence, more even than whether the dominant religion in North America would be Catholic or Protestant. And issue also was whether the primary legal system of North America would be Anglo-American common law, which had its influence from the Holy Scriptures. You can read Blackstone's commentaries on the law, and he will tell you these things. Okay, I know not everybody reads that. Anyway, it was a great victory. Now we move to the next one. Here's a picture of the last time we were here, I think a month ago. They were mentioned that pagans might come to our meeting, and that's all right. The pagans can come. But what we want to consider when you begin to have this competition among different ideas and different religions, that you're going to also come in contact with their law system. And here, what I am reminded of is when I was in grade school, the Catholic nun, I'll never forget it, I was quite young, some things you always remember, she said all religions will war with one another. So there will always be a controversy. We can see that tonight over in the Middle East and what goes on. But anyway, in 2001 here, I was over in England and in Scotland, and the pagans were dancing. You see the pictures there. I brought the newspaper home. I thought it was kind of unique. I don't know what kind of law system they have. I do know some of their history. But anyway, you will have problems. There can only be one law system. And out of that, you get your authority to act. There can only be one, or you got problems. Okay, now we'll move on to the next page. This one's on humanism. This has actually been ruled on by the Supreme Court. I thought that little cartoon there kind of said it all. But you can go down through here. This is all documented. And it will and then look at the bottom. It'll tell you what we're up against. Okay, moving on to the next page. Everybody's tired. Now I want to tell you what we have. Here, just spend a moment we have. Now I have spent my life, and my family, my wife, and we made a point of learning history. And we like to think we know a little bit about it. Here is the chain of Christianity moving west. You'll look down here, where Christianity developed right there in Israel and in Palestine and those places. That's where it was started. That's where Abraham was called out of Babylon, out of the darkness into God's light. The Apostle Paul was actually going to go east. He was going east. And God revealed to him, he said, no, you go west. You go west. And so you can see it moved up. It moved up through Europe and then it jumped the English Channel into England. And then in 1620, God had ordained that it came to America. It went all the way through America. Now, keep in mind, we got people involved, and so it's never perfect. So it's not like it's always what people would try to make us feel guilty of, that there wasn't mistakes made. Then, after World War II, General Douglas MacArthur wired back. He was made the emperor. I'm going to call him the Emperor of Japan. He was maybe that ain't the right word. He was in charge of Japan after the war. And the Japanese people came to him and they said, "Your God has defeated our God. We want to know about the American God." So he sent word back to the States, bring Bibles, bring missionaries. But we didn't get the job done. It didn't quite work out. There was some progress made. The Japanese pretty well imitated our economic system is what they really did. And you might be driving one of their cars tonight. Korea was a little bit different. Korea, there was a lot of Christian work done in Korea and South Korea, and they became quite prosperous. Off to the side here, you see the history of how this was done, the various names of people, but Christianity moved westward. Now, we're moving right along, everybody's tired. On the other hand, not so bad. All right, here is, did the First Amendment of the United States Constitution establish separation of church and state? No! No, it did not. And then just drop down here, and I'll read this. The word Congress has from the beginning been interpreted to mean the federal government. The intent of the amendment was to provide an atmosphere in which Judeo-Christian religion, that was what they known for the most part. You could have said back then America was totally Christian. That might be a little bit too much, but it was pretty close. So the idea was to let the Christian religion flourish. And if you look up their writings, that's what they'll tell you. It protected the biblical legal base of our country, while at the same time it avoided a national church. This is not hard. This is not hard. Turn over to this beautiful picture. Justice lifts the nation. Justice lifts the nation. You'll notice it's not here. There should be something like it. But there's nothing here. We got a picture of Lincoln. Every legal system has a certain amount of authority. Where are you going to get your authority? If you look here, let's see, who is that? Is that an angel? I haven't read it for a little while. Anyway, it's Lady Justice. That's what it is. She's pointing downward to what? To the Bible, to the law. That's where we get our authority from. That's where we can appreciate our sheriff tonight and all the good things that we have. All of the inventions what does the scripture say? The entrance of God's word giveth light. Do you want light or do you want darkness? There's plenty of darkness. If you want to, you don't have to look too far. There are hundreds of inventions that were figured out by Christian men. And America gave thousands and hundreds of people that opportunity, and that's why we have the progress that we have tonight. So, I'll see if I missed anything. We need to be very careful. Syncretism, what is syncretism? Syncretism is when all religions are considered equal. Now that sounds nice, and I'll tell you a story here and I'll quit. It sounds nice, but there's a problem. They all have a law system, and you're going to have confusion. You can only have one law system. Ours has the Christian foundation. Our country has. I'll tell you a story. Over the years, I've trudged along with my family, and we've got us a little business where we rebuild machinery, we clean grain down here at Trellis. And a couple of years ago, we had a call from Sadat City, Egypt. Bakar wanted to come over and buy machinery, and he did. And I met him at the train station, and he was a Muslim, and we were kind of looking at one another, you know. And he looked the machinery over, and he was satisfied, and so he had all this time, and I took him to Cracker Barrel, and he said, "Oh," he said, "that Cracker Barrel is so good. I was tired of eating chicken." He was eating chicken at Kentucky Fried Chicken all the time. Of course, they don't eat pork. Now he said, "Would you take me around and show me different places? I want to go to a certain place." And we went to Seymour Milling at Theotopolis. And so there we were driving down the road. We ended up at Meadville, Pennsylvania. And he was still eating that trout whenever we could find it. He would pray in the morning, and I didn't have the heart to tell him he wasn't praying east all the time. So I just let that go. But you know what? We were friends. We were friends. And that's the way it is in America. The opportunity is here for everybody. We need to quit growling about it. Yep. And we need to quit being takers. And we ought to be givers. And things will get a lot better. We have people tonight. I'm tired, and I'm going to tell you something. We have spent hundreds of thousands of dollars, me and my family. Not 5,000, hundreds of thousands, trying to hold this thing and keep it alive. And I'm kind of tired of seeing it butchered up, and I ain't going to be quiet any longer. Amen. We got people that are living off of this thing that haven't done us an ounce of good. They just tear it down. They're parasites. That's what it is. It's parasites. They're parasites. Now that's all right. They can be around and they can eat all they want to. But they're living off of what Christianity gave them. Now, I guess I shouldn't have said what I said. May the Lord bless everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sutton. Mr. Kirk Allen, you are on to the next list of.
You got it to last as long as Charlie.
Thanks, Charlie. Short prayer, God help me. What's the two questions I've been saying for how long?
Says who with what proof?
Says who with what proof? Those two questions have absolutely changed my whole life. Says who with what proof? 8 months he waited for answers. He was told one thing, but he found out it wasn't right. 27 months, get told one thing, find out it wasn't right. Before I forget, Jimmy, how's the prison ministry going? Okay. When I went into service, I met a gentleman in my unit in 1980, and his 2 kids, one of his kids was born the same day as my son. My boy's named after his oldest son. And as I watched that family grow up for almost 40 years, I would travel through where he retired in Arkansas, and I would spend time with him. I learned that says who with what proof at that duty station. And it literally, and I mean this with all my heart, those 2 questions were such a foundational impact on everything I did. And as I went through that state, and I stopped in about twice a year, they nicknamed me, and I'm no angel by any means, but they nicknamed me the traveling angel, because every time I came in there was a family tragedy going on that they needed an outside input from, and another set of eyes, another perspective. Out of all these board members, I guarantee you all have a different perspective because of your paradigm. What your realm of influence, education, training, whatever it was, that's your paradigm. That's your understanding. And everybody is going to be different. But back to that says who with what proof. His son, Nicholas Schwab, was in his 4th year as a philosopher. And the discussions we had were phenomenal. It was absolutely phenomenal. And he fought tooth and nail the position of any foundational belief in a God. And I asked him one question, are you a man of your word? And I would ask everybody that question, man or woman, are you a man or woman of your word? And most will say absolutely. Now, actions always speak louder than words. And I said, Nick, if you're a man of your word, I'm going to send you a book. Any idea what book I sent him? No, it wasn't the Bible. It was Josh McDowell's book titled Evidence That Demands a Verdict. I challenge every single person that has any question of anything to do with faith to read Josh McDowell's book, Evidence That Demands a Verdict, because just the footnotes alone is the most historical thing I've ever read, with so many footnotes that supported the positions that were presented from a biblical foundation. What in the world does that have to do with county government? The says who with what proof comes down to every action you take. If you're going to take an action, where does it say we can do it? Do we have a foundation to support that it's right? In regards to the medical compensation, we provided, and I would encourage, send all those documents to all the board members to read, because this isn't our first rodeo on this issue, and save yourself 8 months or 27 months of pain and agony of listening to us speak, because we're going to continue to come. You will find the law is crystal clear when you find all of the research that's already been done for you. Most of it we give you. If you need to write a letter to the Attorney General, you're not burdening their time. That's what our taxpayers are for, or taxpayer dollars are for. That letter requesting that opinion can't take more than an hour to write. We'll be happy to even draft one that's a mimic of other counties that have done it. It's pretty straightforward. You don't need to go back to the 70s to see what happened, because the compensation setting resolution is for each elected term. That's when the trigger starts. That's when that situation dictates what you can and can't do. Another note, for those that aren't familiar with the Senate here, or the General Assembly hearings that went on this week, Senate hearing going on Thursday, wind farms. The wind farm lobby has now postured themselves to a position of taking all zoning away from everybody except the county's authority. Meaning, since you don't have zoning, those townships in this county no longer have a say. And that means those property owners could be subject to a wind farm tower or wind generator very close to their the proximity of their residence. And the only protection they have is you folks. That's how bad it's getting. Kind of on point with what Charlie talked about, getting back to the foundation of what our whole purpose is. We have a lot of discussions going on, and I'm sorry, is it Juan?
It's fine.
I'm terrible with Facebook, so I apologize if I missed communication.
No, it's okay.
It's hard to communicate online because you can't hear people's tonal inflections. It's tough because your perception or my perception is based on whatever my opinion or feeling is for the day. Back on point, we hear a lot of reference to the Constitution, and I ask the question, how many have ever read the Federalist Papers? Very few. I hadn't until several years ago. But when I read the Federalist Papers, whoa, it put a whole new perspective on the Constitution and its intent and its purpose. And as I went through that process and learning and applying that says who with what proof, when I get to county government and what the legislatures are trying to do now and strip people's rights away, we've got to stand up to the community and we've got to push back. Because they are diminishing people's property values. And you can go to any county that has wind farms and you will find property values have dropped. What's your biggest financial resource in the county? Property values. And when those property values drop, so is your revenue. And these are all little pieces of that puzzle that come together with pushing back and holding our government accountable. Townships they're on the edge if this bill passes, which it flew out of committee lickety-split. We were only able to turn 3 votes. But if it passes, the only people that have any say in wind farm zoning is the county board. And that's not a good thing. They have literally said, even though the county or the township code says they can zone, they're saying, nope, that's not what it means. Even though counties or townships have passed it. Douglas County, there's 2 townships right now being sued by the wind farm. How many of y'all are on townships? I know, Brandon, you are. Anybody else on a township board? Townships don't have a whole lot of money to fight a legal battle. Not at all. So those who do try to protect their community, that's going to be stripped and it's going to fall right back in you guys' lap. I'll be more than happy to share all the research that we've done on wind farms, and I'm talking from all over the world, that talks about the importance of several factors that affect not only your health and safety, but also affect your property values. And I know you don't have zoning, and zoning is a negative word in a lot of local government, but you do have the option to zone wind independently of all other zoning, the way the statutes are now, and that's been clarified in the Senate. So if there's something that we can do to help with that, I'll be happy to. The fact that says who with what proof, don't believe what you hear until you can see it in writing and do the research that brings it all back to center. I have been lied to my whole life, and I'll say 99% of the time it was unintentional because they didn't know what they're telling me. People say what they hear and they share it and it grows from there. And every single person grows up with a different perspective of things. And it's just our paradigm. You like mustard? For those that missed it, take what you can use. You don't have to take everything. But take what you can use and find the common ground for the common good of everybody. That's all I got. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Allen. That comes to the end of the list. Motion to adjourn has been made. Is there a second? Mr. Coffey, seconded by Coffey. Roll call, please.
Doty.
Yes.
Dowdy.
Yes.
Marvin.
Yes.
Metzger.
Yep.
Purdy. Shook.
Yes.
Barone.
Yes, sorry.
Bell.
Yes.
Coffee.
Yes.
Corey.